Alright, so we want to look at how do we make this object move to the left. And we've got our patrol left statement up here for our function. Let's just fill in some properties or some code in here on the patrol left. Now, how do we get something moving left? Well, we figured out, we're moving our object down by doing a velocity.y. So if we go in and just logically go to our velocity.x, we could move this object to a left or to a right based on a move speed. So let's start off by just setting our velocity. And we'll say our velocity.x. And what do we want velocity x to equal? Well, we are moving to a negative direction, so we'll do a negative. And what is this negative going to be? This is going to be the move speed that we have set up here. We've got our move speed. And we'll just set this up to a negative move speed to have it go the opposite direction. And what are we going to multiply this by? You got it. Time.delta time. And what are we doing here? We are moving the controller to the left. Okay, so this should just move our object to the left. If that is what it's supposed to do, so let's hit save, see what we get with it. We'll go over here to our player, no errors. We have our Goomba state set to left. If we hit play, there he goes. So our Goomba is moving towards our Mario character, and we go, oh no. There we go. So he's moving, but we're not playing any animation to sort of support that movement. So the next thing we want to do, just like before on our other components that we've worked with, we want to go in and we want to use the sprite sheet and play through the squares on that one. So for ours, we're going to be doing our anim play. And our anim play dot, and what are we going to? We're looking for our anim sprite. This is our function inside. We'll take a quick look at it. This is our anim sprite sheet. If we go to the anim sprite, we can look in here and what are we calling up? We're calling up this function, and inside of this function we're looking for the column size, row, frame start, the row start, total frames, and the frames per second. So right in here we're setting this up. So we'll go back over to our enemy Goomba. We're going to say the anim play dot, our anim sprite function, and inside of this function we want to call up our position on our sprite sheet, and I'll go ahead and just give you these numbers so that it makes it a little bit easier for you, but you do need to go in, count them out, find out, again, how to get comfortable using the function we've created with the assets that we have. But we are looking at 16, 16, 0, 7, 16, and 24. This way we should be able to get to the right block of textures, and if we want to take a look at that texture, we could go in on our material, which is right here. And let's just load that one up so we can take a peek at it. So what we are dealing with is the row, the column, the number that we're going to be using, and we're going to be basically trying to get the one that's moving to the left and having them walk that direction. Alright, so let's go ahead and save that one out. Go back over. If we've got no errors, let's hit play. There we go. We got our Goomba running after Mario. But our Goomba doesn't really know what to do as he runs. He simply knows to run left. Our poor Goomba. And he is gone. Alright, so we need to start building in a little bit more logic to the character and making this a little bit more dynamic. So here we're going to call our sprite sheet Or let's even do this way. We'll just call this our draw, run, left. There we go. Alright, so let's go ahead and do basically what we did here. Let's drop it into the patrol right. So we want to be able to move him left and right. So I'm simply going to just copy paste. Again, I would suggest going in and writing this all out. The more times you write this, the more comfortable you'll become with the language, and it's going to make you more productive in the end. And what we want to do, instead of moving at a negative speed, we want the positive speed, so it pushes us in the other direction. And then for the sprite, just so we can see it, this is drawing it left. So let's say we left it just like that. And we go in here, we hit play. Our Goomba starts moving to the left. Well, let's change the state to move right. Well, he moves right, but he's still playing the left animations. So we need to switch those animations up so that he'll actually go to the right. So moving to the right, we've got our 16, 16, 0, but we're on row 6 and 16 and 24. So let's save that one out. Try it again. Here we go. We've got our Goomba moving left. Let's make him go back to the right. There we go. So we've got our character looking like he's actually going left and right, tied into the actual transform and to the sprite. Pretty cool. Okay. Now the next thing we can look at on some of these functions, and we just want to tackle some of these easier ones and go through them. We've got the velocity to move him left and right based on the move speed, and we're changing up the sprite. Now the other thing we have is an idle right and an idle left. So idle, how do we want to handle that one? Basically the same way. We want to go in there and say, well, we have a velocity, and what is our velocity going to equal for idle? Well, the x velocity is going to equal 0, because we're not actually moving this character anywhere inside the world. So we just want to hold him in one spot. And then what do we want to check on for our sprite? Well, we want to just play the idle animation sprite. So we've got our anim play. And what are we calling from the anim play? Our anim sprite. And this function, we've got to fill in our variables. And again, we're looking for our animation for an idle this time around. So we're 16, 16. That's the size of it. And we're looking at 0 and 0. And let's do a 29 and a 24 for the frames. So 29, 24 for the frames. There we go. And this is going to be pretty much the same thing, except the other direction for the idle. On the idle left, we want to change up which animation we're using right in here. So instead of that one, we're going to be using 2 and 31. We've got a little bit different on the number of frames there. Alright, so let's say we hit save, and we go into here, we hit play, and then we go in and we do, okay, move left, let's have him stop. Aha, you notice he turned to the right. Well, let's have him move right. Let's have him stop again. Let's have him move left and stop. And you notice he jumps to the right. Now, why does he jump to the right? Well, if we go back up, we'll go ahead and hit stop here. We go back up, and we say, well, we did set this up to do the idle right. So when I hit the move stop, it's just performing that one function. Now, how do we change this function or add a little more functionality to it to determine what is left and what is right? Now, we took one approach with the Mario, and we're taking just a little bit different approach here just to change things up for us. And what we want to do is just do a conditional. We want to be able to set a position to understand, what direction it actually is in. Which basically means we just need to drop in an extra variable in here to set at the end of each one of these functions to set the direction. So with isRight, we could come in and we can use our variable we had, which is isRight. And with isRight, we're going to be setting this one to true. That lets us know that we're in this direction. Now, isLeft, that would mean that we'd want to set is right to false, because we're not facing to the right. Now, do we need to set the same inside of our patrol left and our patrol right? Yes, we do, because they can be called and then used later. So we'll go ahead and set our is right equals true, because we are patrolling to the right here. And we'll use our is right set to false. Now, how do we use this up top? Well, we've got our function idle right, idle left. If it is idle right, then it's true. If it's idle left, it's false. So inside of our case statement, let's set this up a little bit different for our move stop. What we want to do is use a conditional and check for if is right, then idle right. Else, idle left. So this is going to allow us to check for if the right is set, then go right, otherwise it's left. Let's save that one out. And we'll hit play. Now we are moving left, and we go in and say, well, let's stop. And he stays facing the left direction. So we're looking real good. If we go to the right, and we do move stop, he faces to the right direction. So again, this is just where we're setting up an option for checking a conditional and then setting the state that we want to use. So we could have gone in and said case move left, case move right, or we're doing this one with just one case statement and then checking inside of that case statement with a conditional. And the one thing to notice too is that once we apply this code, once we saved out this code, we are going back in and we are checking it immediately. You know, we don't want to do too much building and then checking. We want to check in small increments. We want to make sure that these little functions that we do work right and are doing what they're supposed to do before we move into more code. So far, so good. And after this one, we'll just continue on with our jumping and our additional functions down here just to fill those out. We'll work on that next.